Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about Ssangsu Geombup Ship Ilban, Form 11, Part 3. Yeah. Yeah. The joys of trying to do a jump in a confined space, right? So one thing I just want to bring up at the very beginning, right, is you probably noticed there was a slight difference between those two, aside from the angle and my my jumping ability maybe, is that one of them I ended back into, at least I know in Japanese it's called seiza, right, back into our seated position, and in the other one I stood up as the was coming together. You have that option, right? So depending if you want to come to a knee, I feel like it's a little bit more traditional versus standing up is going to be a little bit more practical, I suppose. But also, like, if you have not so great knees, that's probably the option for you. But let's talk about that very first move, which is questionable. So the first part of part 3, right, is that double step center cut, right? So theoretically, we just finished that person off. They hopefully fell backwards because we're going to be stepping into their zone in a little bit. Unless if they went off to one side or something, unlikely, right? But, so we just did our strike here. We're going to do my colleague growing up, so this was like 20 years ago, but when we're going through this, we call it the spidey sense stab, right? So I just know someone's behind me, so I'm going to just bring this up. Notice my back foot goes out a little bit, and ideally, I'm thrusting, and I'm able to look at my target as you do that. I'm not as flexible as I would like, but you would stab them in the throat, and you're going to turn away from them with a clearing shot, most likely just a bring it to low guard. It's not meant to be a cut. It's meant just to bring it down, getting ready to do your finishing move. So a detail that at least was true for one of the later forms, right, is it isn't so much, right? You just kind of willy-nilly throw that tip behind you. It's almost like the tip is going, almost like you're going to bump your forehead, and then you go back and then stab, right? So it's not curved this way, it's in, thrust, and then up and turning that way. So you can probably imagine my, my belief on how effective this would be. The main thing that I would probably recommend to kind of give this a little more credence is that's not meant to land, it is meant to ward that person off, right? Because you've had your back to this person for a while, because I've been baiting this person to do something. I finally pulled the trigger to do that. That person has been idle, so if I know they're there, this is not meant to actually stab them. That's meant to be like, hey, I know you're there, and now I'm going to work with you, right? So that's my best interpretation, because seeing a sword go straight for my face from a very weird position, I'm more likely to go back if it's something brand new, as opposed to necessarily, admittedly, very easily just deflect and counter in a very rude way. But using that as a warding shot and then getting back your space, I think is a nice way to think about it, right? So that's so unlike the stepping movement that we do here, that is not a one-off. So we do that in future forms. So again, we do that in Yedo 4 and Umyong 3, so it's a future one as well. But from there, we're now nice low guard. So the way it's usually taught is just go with it, just jump. I like to break it down a little bit. So this is my personal breakdown. So step, get that sword ready. So I'm going to step, invert it, get a little more strength in that block. So step, as I step with it, using the belly of the sword to block, and then you're going to use, again, the belly of the sword to hit, and then you're going to grab into that kneel cut. Now, there's really not much you can do about the scabbard hitting the ground. It's just geometry, right? That's just going to happen. So from here, we would do our classic Ssangsu 6 put away. This one. Notice I bring my hand up quite a lot so I don't skim the floor. Up. And again, you have a choice of bringing it in this way or staying on the floor and getting in that way. But let's work on that jumping portion a little bit more, right? So the theory behind it, and the reason I'm not doing as many jumps is because space, right? But to break it down, step, block, again, hit. We're going to talk about this move in a little bit, and then down, right? So that's kind of like part one. Get used to adding a little bit of a jump, right? Here, jump, 1, 2, right? And as you get higher, more and more confident, I really like to use that knee to drive and use that hip to twist midair. Again, we're using a little bit of the back of the sword. If you need to, you can use the flat. The flat's not great, but back to flat of the sword to block out of the way, and then we're going to do that strike. So as you get more and more comfortable, right? So from here, step 1, and then strike, and then cut. So practice that if you want to have. So this is not for you, and this is for one of your students, right? A fun drill you can have is put some shield targets down in front of them, and you can think about using that jump over that target. A lot of fun stuff. But let's also talk about why. Why is really important, right? So have fun with that drill, and we'll talk about it. So unlike previous interesting moves, this one doesn't have a standard canonical usage, but take some ideas that we've done in the past, right? So the one that I like the most, just because jumping towards someone is such a mood, right? That you really have to be dedicated to it, and also the range is really, really weird. So the one that makes the most sense for me is against a spear, right? Again, long spear, not short spear. Short spear, they retract really, really easily. They can still retract really easily with the long spear, but theoretically, if I'm really gambling and I'm able to get the tip offline, I'm using this to get nice and close, this hand is free for that first strike. I can try to not necessarily grab the spear, because although that would be ideal, I can use it just to keep it out of the way. This could be to hit, either hitting the spear, hitting the person's hand, and this one is the cut to finally finish it off, right? Why you come to knee, it's honestly a little more aesthetic. In future forms, we just kind of end on a knee in general. It could also be to, like, if I am successful, I'm out of direct line of anyone else, right? But so that is one idea, is to use this as a deflect a spear thrust, do something here, smack, and finish, right? You could theoretically do the same thing against a thrust against a normal sword. The range makes that difficult to justify, right? Because if I'm close enough to deflect this way against a thrust, they're like there, right? Not there, they're there, right? Hopefully the hand is helping. So if I do a full-on jump, they are like either at my hip or closer, and then this doesn't really make much sense past that. So spear is my best justification. Another possible justification that I don't like is 2 opponents. You are going past the first person to dispatch the second person, but then you put the sword away with that other person still there. Also not great. So if you have a better idea of what's going on there, leave a comment, let me know. And I really want to, again, discuss and play with these ideas. But one last thing, right? So we're talking about that rolling motion for that first strike. So very similar to what we talked about with Ssangsu 10, where it's not meant to be a cut with this one. So if you have a blood groove or something that lets you hear the sword, theoretically you shouldn't hear anything on this motion because it's making contact and rolling. before you do that second strike. So again, facing you, because I don't think I've actually done one that way yet. So it's block, so it's contact, roll, grab, full cut, right? So it's meant to just shove something out of the way as opposed to necessarily cutting it out of the way. There are reasons why you might, right? Because this the back part is a little bit more soft, and can absorb more of the momentum a little bit more without breaking the edge. The rolling motion also does help deflect and make sure you don't have sticky swords, right? So two edges clanging against each other tend to stick together, right? So theoretically, using that rolling motion is going to give you not the ability to stick, which you don't want to do with that first strike, because I want to land the second strike. But with that, right? So after we've done all of this stuff, we come to that fun little knee. You have the choice of, I tend to have the eagle stance landing, right? So we have back foot, knee is like on a 45 or 90. This front foot's quite close to my front knee. I'm leaning slightly over this way. Theoretically, you can just have a normal knee, but also I have bad knees. So it will be nice and tucked in this way. And then you put the sword away. Again, having choice of standing up or bringing that other knee in. Notice, just keep in mind for when you're looking at the video, I am facing this way, not on purpose. It should be facing that way. I just don't have knee pads on, and being able to pivot that way is a little bit harder. Just keep that in mind. With that, that's form 11, right? So we're approaching the penultimate form for first dan, right? So people who already have a black belt moving on to second dan. The next, so a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're going to be doing in the future. The next two forms, Form 12, Form 13. Form 13 is also called Shimsung. They are long forms. So this is going to make the labeling so much fun. Is most likely going to be 12. So Form 12, Form 12, Section 1, Part 1. It's probably going to be two parts per section, but there are 4 parts for each of those forms. They're essentially 4 forms kind of glued together, so it's a very long form. So just keep that in mind. So there's going to be a lot of 12 and a lot of Shimsung, but they're really, really fun forms. Form 12 is one of my favorites. I know I say that a lot for a lot of forms, but 12 is one of mine because it's just so weird, and it's one of the closest ones to Muyodobu Tonji, right, which is the oldest historical Korean manual that we still have. So keep that in mind. So this is the last normal length form of Ssangsu. So with that, make sure you stay safe, stay humble, and keep training.